I pulled into my dad's driveway in Jackson, Mississippi, my SUV packed with gifts, a few bottles of wine for the table, a cozy blanket, and a nice laptop for my sister. I'd driven for hours hoping for a real family moment where we'd laugh and talk without anyone having to beg for help. But before I could even unbuckle my seatbelt, my stepmom stormed out of the house, jabbing a finger at me like a weapon. "You're a failure, Jenna," she screamed loud enough for the whole street to hear. "No money for the Thanksgiving spread. What kind of daughter are you?" Her words cut me to the bone, cold and sharp, reminding me of all the years I'd spent supporting them financially. I glanced past her to see my dad standing in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the ground. Not a word. Not a single gesture of defense. His silence hurt more than her venom, as if he'd already written me off. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I put the car in reverse, gravel crunching under the tires, and drove away. An hour later, I was alone in a dingy motel room, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I'd built a wealthy life from scratch, flipping houses, closing deals they'd never understand yet. They treated me like a failure, an ATM they could insult and ignore. That night, I made a decision: no more payments, no more support. They'd learn what life was like without me holding everything together. And soon, they'd face consequences they wouldn't forget. Want to see how my family paid for their betrayal? Subscribe, hit the bell, and follow my fight for justice. Let me take a step back to explain why that moment in the entryway hurt me so deeply. I'm a real estate entrepreneur based in Jackson, Mississippi, and I built my brokerage firm from the ground up. No loans, no handouts, just relentless effort, long nights studying market trends and closing deals that brought in six-figure profits. Today, my company specializes in buying, renovating, and leasing commercial properties, giving me the financial freedom I never imagined as a child. But for years, I poured my success into supporting my family, believing that would earn their respect. I was wrong. For nearly 10 years, I've been the one paying for everything. I cover the electric bills so their rental home doesn't lose power. I pay the rent for Linda Brooks, my stepmother, who moved in with my father after my mother passed away. I also fund the tuition for my sister Carla Lawson, who's studying journalism and dreams of becoming an investigative reporter. But Linda acts as if my money grows on trees. She often calls demanding thousands of dollars for designer curtains or a mahogany dining table, and never once says thank you. "You've got money, just send it." She snaps, her tone sharp as a blade. I send the money anyway, hoping for peace, but her demands only grow bolder. My father, Stephen Harper, isn't any help either. He's the kind of man who avoids conflict like it's a landmine. He lets Linda run everything, handing her complete control of their finances while he stays silent. Every time I push back against one of Linda's demands, he just says, "Talk to Linda about it," and buries his face in the newspaper. It breaks my heart to know he'll never take my side, even though I'm the one keeping their lives from falling apart. Carla, my younger sister, is different. We've always been close. She tells me about her classes, and I tell her about my property deals. But she depends on me too. Her education is entirely funded from my account. She hasn't realized yet that Linda is using everyone, at least not yet. Then there's Dana Pierce, my best friend, also 35, who works in real estate with me. She saw the problem from the start. Over lunches at our favorite cafe, she'd tell me, "They're taking advantage of you, Jenna. You need to set boundaries, or they'll drain you dry." I used to laugh it off, but her words stayed with me. Dana has always been my emotional anchor, the person I can call anytime Linda goes too far. She not only listens, but helps me regain my balance, strategize for major clients, or expand my portfolio. Looking back, the signs were all there. Linda called like clockwork each time with a new request. One summer, she demanded $6,000 to host an outdoor party, hire a private chef, and book a live band, claiming it was a family bonding event. I sent the money, hoping Dad would call to thank me, but he never did. Another time, she insisted on buying a new leather sofa because the old one looked cheap when her book club came over. I paid again, but I was never invited to their house. Each check I signed felt like a silent plea for them to see me as family, not just a wallet. But that never happened. I kept telling myself things would get better. I dreamed of a holiday where we could all sit together, share stories, maybe even laugh, without mentioning Mom. Thanksgiving seemed like the perfect chance for that. I planned to bring gifts: a fine bottle of wine, a warm blanket for the Mississippi winter, and a new laptop for Carla's studies. I imagined us gathered around the dinner table, finally feeling like a real family. But the truth was right in front of me. Linda's endless demands, my father's cowardly silence, and Carla's dependence all pointed to one painful reality. They didn't see me as a daughter or a sister, only as a provider. That moment in the doorway wasn't the first time I felt erased, but it was the most painful. All those years of giving, hoping to be appreciated, shattered in an instant. I had built a life most people only dream of, yet my own family saw me as nothing more than a means to an end. That night, sitting alone, I knew I couldn't keep carrying them anymore. It was time for a change, and it would start with me. The morning after Thanksgiving, I sat in that motel room and called my bank. My hands were steady, but my heart raced as I gave the orders: cancel the recurring payments for the electric bill, void the lease agreement for Linda's rental house, and shut down the family's shared credit card. For years, I'd been their financial lifeline, wiring thousands to keep their lives running. But after Linda's venomous outburst and Dad's gutless silence, I was done. No more bailing them out. I hung up the phone, a weight lifting off my shoulders, replaced by a spark of defiance. They'd learn what it meant to bite the hand that fed them. The fallout hit fast. Without my payments, the power company sent overdue notices, and their house went dark. The heat cut off in the late November chill. Linda got a call from the landlord informing her the lease was terminated for non-payment. She also faced a legal notice from a car rental company demanding settlement for an SUV she'd leased on my dime and never paid off. Their world was unraveling, and I didn't feel an ounce of guilt. They'd taken me for granted too long, assuming I'd always cover their mess. Now they'd have to face reality without my safety net. Carla texted me that afternoon, her messages frantic. "The house is freezing, Jenna. We barely have food for leftovers. What's going on? Where are you?" Her words tugged at me, but I kept my response short. Busy with work. I didn't tell her I'd pulled the plug on their finances. Part of me felt lighter, finally free from their endless demands. But another part ached, replaying Dad's refusal to speak up for me. His silence echoed louder than Linda's insults, a betrayal that cut deeper than I'd expected. Carla didn't know the half of it, and I wasn't ready to explain. I needed to clear my head, so I drove to a coffee shop in Jackson to meet Dana. Over steaming mugs, I spilled everything: Linda's public attack, how she'd called me a failure in front of the neighbors, Dad just standing there like a statue. Dana listened, her eyes narrowing with every detail. "You did the right thing," she said, leaning forward. "They've been leeching off you for years. Let them figure it out now." Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of doubt. She reminded me I wasn't the villain here, even if my family tried to paint me as one. We talked strategy, focusing on my next real estate deal to keep my mind off the chaos I'd just unleashed. Later that day, my phone buzzed with a call from Linda. I let it go to voicemail, her voice dripping with fake urgency. "Jenna, we're in trouble. The power's off, the landlord's threatening us, and I need you to send money now to fix this." She didn't mention her outburst, no apology, just the same entitled tone I'd heard for years. I deleted the message without replying. For the first time, I felt a surge of power, not the kind that comes from money, but from taking control. I wasn't their ATM anymore. I was choosing myself, and it felt good. The decision to cut them off wasn't just about money. It was about breaking free from a cycle where my worth was tied to what I could give. Linda's demands had always been a one-way street, and Dad's refusal to intervene made it clear he'd never see me as more than a resource. Even Carla, as close as we were, didn't fully grasp the weight of what I'd carried. I'd spent years trying to hold the family together, thinking my generosity would earn their love. But sitting in that coffee shop with Dana's support grounding me, I saw the truth. They didn't value me, and I didn't need their approval to know my worth. I'd built a life most would envy, and I wasn't going to let them drag me down anymore. As the day ended, I checked my phone again. Another text from Carla pleading for answers, but I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to face her questions or the guilt she might try to stir. Linda's voicemail had been the final straw, proof that nothing had changed. They'd pushed me too far, and now they'd have to deal with the consequences. I didn't know how bad things would get for them, but I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going back. By mid-December, Carla called me, her voice full of worry. "Jenna, why haven't you come home since Thanksgiving? Something's off with Linda and Dad." Her questions caught me off guard, but I could hear the doubt in her tone, like she was starting to see cracks in their story. I took a deep breath and told her what happened that day before Thanksgiving. I described how Linda pointed at me in the driveway, calling me a failure for not sending money fast enough for their holiday feast, her words sharp enough to draw blood in front of the neighbors. I told Carla how Dad just stood there, not saying a word to defend me, his silence a heavier blow than Linda's attack. Carla went quiet, then whispered, "I didn't know it was that bad." Her shock felt genuine, but it didn't erase the distance growing between us. Later that week, my phone lit up with a long text from Linda. "You have a responsibility to this family, Jenna," it read. "We're struggling because you abandoned us. How can you be so heartless?" Her words dripped with manipulation, twisting the truth to make me the villain. She didn't mention her outburst or the years I'd spent paying their bills. It was the same old playbook: guilt me into opening my wallet. I stared at the message, my anger flaring. She thought she could pull the same strings, but I wasn't playing her game anymore. I left the text unanswered, letting her stew in her own desperation. Steven still hadn't reached out. Not a call, not a text, nothing. His refusal to even acknowledge me deepened the ache in my chest. I'd always hoped he'd stand up for me, be the dad who'd fight for his daughter. But his silence screamed louder than ever, confirming he'd chosen Linda's side, or maybe just chosen to stay out of it altogether. It was a betrayal I couldn't shake, and it made me question if he'd ever seen me as more than a means to an end. Then Uncle Brian, my mom's younger brother, called out of the blue. "Jenna, what's this about family trouble?" He asked, his voice gruff but concerned. "I'm hearing rumors from cousins about you cutting everyone off." The gossip had spread, no doubt fueled by Linda's version of events. I kept my response short, saying, "It's complicated, Uncle Brian. I'm handling it." I didn't want to drag him into the mess or justify myself to relatives who'd already picked sides. His call left me uneasy, a reminder that Linda's influence reached further than I'd thought. Dana was my lifeline through it all. We met at our usual coffee shop in Jackson, where she helped me stay focused on a massive real estate deal, a commercial property that could net me a six-figure commission. "Don't let them distract you," she said, her voice firm. "You're building something bigger than their drama." We spent hours mapping out the pitch, analyzing market data, and practicing my presentation to the investors. Her support kept me grounded, reminding me that my life didn't revolve around my family's chaos. That deal was my future, not their complaints. But Linda wasn't done. She'd started spreading stories among our relatives, painting me as the selfish daughter who'd abandoned her struggling family. I got a cold text from my cousin Laura saying, "Didn't expect you to turn your back on your own blood." Aunt Marie, who'd always been kind, stopped replying to my messages. The rumors stung, but they also showed me how far Linda would go to keep control. She wasn't just after my money anymore. She wanted to turn everyone against me. I felt the weight of their judgment, but I refused to let it pull me back into their orbit. Carla's call had opened a door, but not wide enough. She was starting to question Linda and Dad, but she still didn't fully understand why I'd pulled away. I wanted to tell her everything, how their demands had drained me, how Dad's silence had broken something in me, but I held back. She wasn't ready to hear it, and I wasn't ready to trust her reaction. Linda's lies were spreading, and Stephen's absence was a wound that kept bleeding. But with Dana by my side and a big deal on the horizon, I was starting to see a way forward. I wasn't the failure Linda claimed, and I wasn't going to let her rewrite my story. Right after New Year's, Aunt Susan showed up at my dad's house unannounced. Susan, my late mom's older sister, didn't bother knocking. She marched in and confronted Linda head-on. "You sold my sister's heirlooms," she said, her voice like steel, accusing Linda of pawning off Mom's jewelry and antiques, items worth thousands that were meant to stay in the family. Linda's face went pale, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she stood there stammering as Susan laid out the truth. Linda had been quietly selling off Mom's sapphire necklace, her vintage brooch, and a set of rare porcelain figurines, all without telling anyone. Susan had proof receipts from a local pawnshop and emails Linda sent to an antique dealer haggling over prices for Mom's treasures. Those emails, cold and calculated, showed Linda pocketing the cash for herself. Susan didn't stop there. She turned to Stephen, who was hovering nearby, and demanded, "You knew about this, didn't you?" He didn't answer, just looked away, his jaw tight. That silence was all Carla needed to hear. She'd been in the room listening, and the realization hit her like a freight train. "Dad, you let her do this?" she asked, her voice breaking. Carla had always trusted Stephen, but now she saw him for what he was: complicit, letting Linda strip away pieces of our mother's legacy without a fight. The shock in Carla's eyes turned to anger, her faith in both of them crumbling right there. Linda, cornered, did what she always did, deflected. "This is Jenna's fault," she snapped, her voice rising. "She pushed us to the edge by cutting us off. I had no choice." It was a lie, and everyone in that room knew it. She didn't offer to return the money or admit her wrong, she just doubled down, blaming me for her theft. Susan wasn't having it. She told Linda to stop lying, that those heirlooms weren't hers to sell, and that she'd crossed a line no one could forgive. Linda's excuses fell flat, her usual manipulation failing under Susan's glare. Later that day, Susan emailed me a folder of evidence-scanned receipts, showing Linda's transactions dated months back, and screenshots of her emails to the dealer complete with dollar amounts. One email read, "I can let the necklace go for $2,500, but I need the cash fast." Seeing Mom's memory reduced to a quick buck made my stomach turn. Susan added a note, "Stay away from them, Jenna. Protect yourself. They don't deserve you." Her words were a lifeline, validating everything I'd felt for years. I wasn't the selfish one, despite what Linda's rumors had spread. I was the one who'd been betrayed over and over by the people who should have had my back. But the truth didn't erase the pain. Knowing Stephen had stood by while Linda sold off Mom's things felt like a knife twisting deeper. I'd always held out hope that he'd step up, be the father who'd fight for what was right. Instead, he'd let Linda plunder our family's past piece by piece, without so much as a protest. His complicity hurt worse than her greed. I thought of the sapphire necklace Mom used to wear on special occasions, the way it caught the light when she smiled. Now it was gone, and he'd done nothing to stop it. That loss tied to his silence left a wound I didn't know how to heal. Carla's reaction gave me a flicker of hope, though. Her shock meant she was starting to see Linda and Stephen for who they were. I wanted to call her to talk about what Susan had uncovered, but I held back. She needed time to process, and I wasn't sure she'd fully side with me yet. Susan's evidence was a turning point, proof that I wasn't the villain Linda painted me to be. It gave me a strange sense of relief, like I'd been vindicated after years of carrying their weight. But it also made me realize how far my family had fallen. They weren't just using me, they were erasing Mom's memory to line their pockets. I knew then that I had to keep my distance no matter how much it hurt. Susan was right. I had to protect myself because no one else in that house would. A week later, Carla called me again, her voice shaking with anger. "Jenna, How could you just abandon us? She snapped, her words cutting deep. You cut everyone off, and now we're falling apart. Don't you care? She thought I was too harsh, that I should have come back after Thanksgiving to fix things. I tried explaining that I'd been carrying the family for years, but she wasn't hearing it. Her frustration felt like a slap, especially since she'd started to see Linda's lies. I wanted to tell her about Aunt Susan's evidence, but her anger made me hold back. Our closeness was fraying, and it hurt to feel her slipping away. Then, Cousin Eric, my mom's nephew, texted me out of the blue. He sent a screenshot of a group chat where Linda was spinning her narrative, calling me selfish and heartless for leaving the family to fend for themselves. The message read, "Jenna's sitting on her fortune while we're struggling to eat." It was another attempt to paint me as the villain sent to our extended relatives to rally them against me. Eric added, "I don't buy it, Jenna. She's twisting everything." His support was unexpected but welcome, a small sign that not everyone had fallen for Linda's stories. Still, seeing her words in black and white made my blood boil. She was relentless even after everything. Dana kept me grounded through the chaos. We'd been working on a major real estate deal in Jackson, a $75,000 in commission for leasing a downtown office space. She sat with me for hours, refining our pitch and double-checking contracts. When we finally signed the deal, the client shaking my hand with a smile, I felt a surge of pride. Dana grinned and said, "This is you, Jenna. You built this." That moment cemented my resolve to keep moving forward no matter what my family threw at me. The money wasn't just a win, it was proof I could thrive without their weight pulling me down. Meanwhile, Linda turned her sights on Carla. With my support gone, she started pressuring Carla to cover their bills, demanding she chip in for rent and groceries. Carla, still in journalism school and scraping by on part-time work, couldn't handle it. She texted me late one night, her words heavy with stress. "Linda's asking me for money now. I can't keep up, Jenna. Please help." The desperation in her message tore at me, but I knew giving in would mean falling back into their trap. Linda wasn't just manipulating me anymore. She was dragging Carla into the same cycle. It made my fight with Carla even harder, her anger now mixed with panic as Linda tightened her grip. That tension pushed me to a realization: my family didn't value me. Not Linda, who saw me as a cash machine. Not Steven, who stayed silent through it all. And not even Carla, who couldn't see why I had to walk away. Her pleas kept coming, each text begging me to step in, but I made the hardest choice, yet I didn't respond. I wasn't going to let guilt pull me back into a role that had drained me for years. It wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. I'd given them everything, and they'd given me nothing but demands and blame. Instead of looking back, I turned to something new. Dana and I started a community project, organizing a free real estate workshop in Jackson to teach first-time buyers about the market. We spent weekends planning, booking a local community center, and designing handouts. Teaching people how to navigate homeownership gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. One woman thanked me after a session, saying my advice helped her dream of owning a home feel possible. That moment, standing in front of a small crowd with Dana by my side, showed me I could build something meaningful without my family's approval. I wasn't just surviving their drama, I was creating a life that mattered. Carla's anger and Linda's schemes still lingered, but they were losing their hold on me. Eric's screenshot had shown me Linda's true colors, and Carla's struggle was a painful reminder of how far her manipulation reached. I wasn't going back, no matter how much Carla begged. My future was in the deals I closed, the people I helped, and the life I was building on my own terms. For the first time, I felt like I was enough. By late January, a letter from Linda arrived at my doorstep. The envelope bore her name, but the handwriting looked off, too neat, too deliberate. I opened it to find an apology, or so it claimed. "Jenna, I'm sorry for the tension. Let's move forward as a family." It read, the words dripping with a softness Linda never had. But the tone felt wrong, almost rehearsed, and I recognized the slant of the letters. It wasn't Linda's scrawl, it was Steven's. He'd forged the letter trying to trick me into softening my stance. The betrayal stung not just for the lie, but for the cowardice behind it. He couldn't even face me with his own words. Days later, I got a summons to a small claims court in Jackson. Linda and Stephen were suing me, claiming I'd caused them to lose Mom's heirlooms by cutting off their finances. They demanded $10,000 for the stolen jewelry and antiques, twisting the truth to make me the thief. The audacity of it burned, but I wasn't surprised. Linda had always rewritten reality to suit her, and Stephen's silence had enabled her every step. I wasn't going to let them win this time. I had Susan's evidence pawnshop receipts and emails proving Linda sold Mom's sapphire necklace and porcelain figurines for cash, and Dana's unwavering support to keep me focused. Dana and I spent late nights preparing for the hearing. She helped me organize the documents, draft my statement, and practice my delivery. "You've got this," she said, her confidence steadying me. Susan sent me a new email attaching a signed affidavit confirming the heirlooms were meant for me and Carla, not Linda. With every piece of evidence, my resolve grew. This wasn't just about winning a case, it was about exposing their lies for good. I walked into the courthouse with my head high, ready to fight for the truth. In the courtroom, Linda played the victim, her voice trembling, as she told the judge I'd abandoned the family, forcing her to sell Mom's things to survive. Stephen sat beside her, eyes fixed on the floor, offering no defense. I presented Susan's evidence methodically, the receipts showing Linda's transactions, the emails where she haggled for quick cash, and the affidavit proving her theft. The judge's expression hardened as I spoke. When Linda tried to interrupt, claiming I'd pushed her to it, I countered with bank records showing years of my payments for their bills. The truth was undeniable. The judge ruled in my favor, dismissing their claim and ordering them to cover court costs. As we left, I saw neighbors in the gallery whispering, their faces a mix of shock and disdain. The fallout was swift. Word of the trial spread through Jackson like wildfire. Neighbors who once greeted Linda and Stephen with smiles now turned away. The couple down the street who'd hosted their holiday parties stopped inviting them. A local shop owner refused Linda's credit when she tried to buy groceries, citing unpaid tabs. Their lies had unraveled, and the community saw them for what they were. Without my financial support, their debts piled up: unpaid loans, overdue rent, and mounting legal fees. By mid-February, they lost their house to foreclosure and were forced to move to a rundown apartment across town, their reputation in tatters. Carla's reaction hit me hardest. She sent me a final text. "You've destroyed us, Jenna. I'm done." She was furious, blaming me for not stepping in to save them even after everything. I stared at her words, my heart heavy but resolute. I'd tried to protect her, to show her the truth, but she wasn't ready to see it. Her silence after that felt final, like a door closing between us. It hurt, but I accepted it. I couldn't keep chasing a relationship that demanded I sacrifice myself. Meanwhile, my life in Jackson was taking shape. I signed another major real estate deal, a $90,000 commission for a commercial property lease, solidifying my career. Dana and I expanded our community work, launching a charity auction to fund housing for low-income families. We spent weeks gathering donations from local businesses to my own clients, raising thousands. At the auction, I watched families bid on essentials like furniture, their gratitude filling me with purpose. This was the life I wanted, one built on my terms, not my family's demands. Looking back, I found peace in a truth I'd fought to accept. Protecting my boundaries was worth more than clinging to toxic ties, even with family. Linda and Stephen's downfall wasn't my doing. It was the consequence of their choices. Their greed and lies cost them everything, while I built a life rooted in integrity and independence. Carla's absence left a scar, but I knew I'd made the right choice. I was no longer the daughter who gave until she broke. I was Jenna standing tall in a community that valued me, surrounded by people like Dana who lifted me up. This journey taught me that self-worth isn't tied to what you give others. It's about standing up for yourself even when it's hard.
What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping family drama, shocking betrayals, and the revenge stories you won't believe.